Well, this is a very special Ask GCN this week, because you're not asking GCN, you're asking Mark Beaumont, who's here to answer all your questions about his epic, record-breaking, monumental ride around the world, covering 18,039 miles in 78 days and 14 hours. Mark, thank you so much for coming in.
It's great to be back.
First up,
Go on.
I'm going to ask you a question though, if you don't mind. Are you still absolutely knackered? Because I'm just knackered reading about your adventures. Just the thought of it before you attempted it blew my mind. So, how are you feeling?
I'm quite happy to be seated, but it's been such a weird mindset. You go from 2.5 months racing, only sleeping 5 hours a night, to lots of media, lots of fantastic time with my kids and my wife, a bit of family time. It's taken a while to readjust back, but essentially, I'm good.
You do look
You are
He
okay.
looks fresh,
Yeah.
doesn't he?
Yeah.
He looks fresh, surprisingly fresh.
If you read some of the newspaper reports, they've described me sort of almost as if I'm like a dead man walking, because I think that's what people want to think. You've put yourself through an 18,000-mile race around the planet and it's left you just ruined. Maybe the real story is a bit more boring than that. I had an incredible performance team who looked after me, calories in, calories out. They were always making sure I wasn't going into the red, and I'm okay.
I think that was my problem on day one when I joined you, because I was a dead man walking.
You're a one-man team, weren't you?
I blame my performance team, frankly. There was not enough support there. But a lot of people have been really, really interested to know about your welfare, basically, following the race. So Neil Moss asked on Facebook, what kind of wind-down regime are you following? Presumably you don't just stop cycling completely.
That's wind down, not wind down, by the way.
Well, yes, there has been some fine red Bordeaux as well, but the wind down is structured till about 2 months out at the moment. So I took about a week, 10 days off.
So you did totally stop?
I did, yeah. I sort of slept for Scotland and just spent time with the family, and that was really useful. During that period, it was just walk, get on my feet and walk, because one of the things which I knew would be an issue and has been an issue is I didn't walk for 2.5 months. I mean, I literally got on the bike at 4 a.m, got off the bike at 9:30 at night. Maybe I would have done 20 steps a day.
20 steps.
So I wasn't walking. So my lower back and my legs, you don't love walking at the moment. I can happily pedal 250 miles, but ask me to walk up a hill and I would definitely protest loudly. So walking, swimming, anything off the bike just to normalise my fitness is pretty key. But now, yeah, I'm training down. I've got to stay active, but my training down schedule is a bit of a joke compared to my training up schedule. I mean, this is nothing really to write home about. Whereas before it was these ridiculous sessions starting at 4 or 5 in the morning. Both in terms of the intensity and the duration. Now it's go for a 90-minute spin, or go for a 2 half-hour walks. It's good fun.
Just a quick on that point, because you slept so little.
Yeah.
Are you managing to sleep like normally now, or are you getting up early in the morning as you would? Have you got some sort of global lag, or can you rest?
The world's ultimate jet lag.
World lag. Yeah.
My sleeping's been fine. I've never really struggled with sleep. Keep in mind that my background in between all the cycling has been ocean rowing and other sports where I'm doing 2 hours on, 2 hours off, trying to sleep every couple of hours. I'm very good at switching on, switching off. It's something I guess I've got used to. But since I've come back, apart from having a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old to contend with, sleep's been no problem at all.
Nice. All right, going back to your questions now. Remy Cloire, he's asked, how is your heart still healthy after sleep deprivation and 16 hours on the bike? So you've done a few medicals since getting back, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we've not done anything too specific on where the heart is. I mean, one of the comments that came through most often during the ride with people following the the Strava and the uploads was, I would be riding 16, 17 hours a day with an average heart rate of 100, if not less. Wow. So I mean, it's obviously a well-developed muscle which is just absolutely used to living in that zone 1, sometimes just peeking into zone 2, but nothing like what you guys are used to doing. But it's that sort of that diesel engine, that ability to go all day. I've been fine since I've got back. I mean, we did bloods last week. Everything's pretty healthy. Maybe need to bring the iron levels back up a little bit. White blood's quite low, but you'd kind of expect that because my immune system will be a bit battered.
Yeah.
So I just need to try and stay, healthy. Just try and, as I say, it's so typical to come off the back of something as stressful as that and get ill. But touch wood. I mean, during the trip, that was one of the big successes. staying fit, staying healthy, and then off the back of it trying to do the same. So the bloods didn't show up anything too scary. You'd kind of expect some of the numbers to be slightly off the chart because you've gone for 16 hours a day for 2.5 months.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive though that you are so healthy. I guess, like you say, testament to your performance team.
Yeah, and the last couple of weeks, I've done a DEXA scan, so that's the full body X-ray, which also shows muscle and fat. It basically shows your entire setup, and we did that before. We've done that after, so very interesting to see the contrast in that. Bloods, had an MRI done on the elbow because we knew that wasn't right after a crash which happened on day 9, just coming out of Moscow. I came off my bike 3 times on the way around the world. I mean, a crash every 3 weeks is not great, is it? So, we needed to make sure that I was fit and healthy.
Yeah. Now, probably the $1 million question that's been clearly weighing heavily on many people's minds, and I mean many people's minds, is actually, it's not about your heart or your bloods. It's about your arse, Mark. Now, I don't want to go into detail here, but effectively...
We don't need photos.
You obviously do.
No. Keep your hands on. Clearly, everything was all right because you can't, it's one of those things that can take you off the bike if you get a really bad saddle sore, can't it? So how did you make sure that everything was okay?
Well, you say that. I mean, I'll pick you up on that because I've heard of ultra endurance riders saying I've stopped to ride because of saddle sores. And I don't quite get that. Once you're fully committed to... I get the fact if you've, broken a bone or you're properly injured, but a saddle sore is quite an aesthetic thing. It's broken skin, it's callousing, whatever's going on there. The only thing that, for me, puts saddle sores into perspective is having Ocean Road when you add salt to the equation. Because salt sores on top of saddle sores are really not pretty. I think when it comes to ultra endurance, your ability to complete and day in, day out, week in, week out is your ability to suffer, and that's that's sort of our forte. The forte that we don't have is the ability to climb hills the speed that you do, and maybe have the sprint and the power. If you're going to be good at ultra endurance, you need to have grit. You need to have the ability to suffer. So I can't think of a time where you would have to stop riding because of a saddle sore.
That's impressive. That's hardcore.
Tell that to Sean Kelly in 1987 Vuelta a España when he pulled out with 3 days to go.
Yeah.
Well, there was
in the leader's jersey, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was. But I think that was a saddle ball the size of a small apple, I believe.
Well, there you go. I've not been there.
I've not been there.
Does that mean you did have a little bit of chafage going on?
Of course, crikey. I mean, absolutely. But people always ask, are your legs okay? What does it feel like to do these miles back to back to back? Your muscles are fine. You can totally get used to it. What hurts with ultra endurance is the conditioning. It's your hands, it's your neck, it's your backside, it's your feet. The pressure sores you get underneath your cleats. It's the stuff that you don't get on a 5-6 hour ride. And you never have full time to recover from that. I'd say you get into your scratcher at 10:30 at night, you get 5 hours kit, alarm goes off at 3:30, you're back on the bike at 4. That graveyard shift always hurts.
Yeah.
Because you've not fully recovered from the day before, the weeks preceding. But that conditioning, it's amazing how the body computes that sort of pain, because it's not a proper injury, it's just soreness. And I always think that if you ride for long enough, the nerves almost stop relating the pain. Your backside might hurt for the first 90 minutes on the bike, and then it says, right, okay, I told you so. And then it doesn't actually hurt for the rest of the day, and it's not like the saddle sores have gone away. It's just you've ridden through that.
I suppose psychologically as well, something as small as that, compared to the scale and the enormity of what you're doing, it kind of pales into its insignificance. So you can almost file it away right at the back of your mind and just push through, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think any bike rider will relate to the fact that if you've got a sunny day when you've got a tailwind and things are going well, little aches and pains will come through that weren't bothering you otherwise, but then suddenly you have a proper thing to worry about, and that becomes, because you're on your own, you're on the bike, it's just what's going on between your ears.
Yeah.
So I mean, so on day 9 I crashed pretty heavily, and then for the next 3-4 weeks on the bike, the issue was my elbow, and I ended up cycling terribly. I mean, because I was compensating for this, I gave myself issues down the right hand side of my neck and down my right leg because I broke my pedal on day 17 because basically from day 9 to day 17 I'd been cycling so weirdly to protect this elbow, which we now know was a radial head fracture. And the roads in Russia are
just a casual radial head fracture.
And so it was a chipped elbow. Again, the news made it sound like I was riding with a broken arm, which is
sounds bad enough.
It's not. That's a broken arm.
You got to put this into perspective. It was a hairline fracture in there, but cycling on rough roads was very painful.
Yeah.
So that was something that absolutely consumed my everything that was going on for the following weeks. By the time I got to Australia and New Zealand and that started settling down, I was back on better roads. Other niggles came through. Now, were those other niggles there during Russia, Mongolia, China? Yeah, they probably were, but they just weren't top of the pile. So I mean, there's always a level of discomfort when you're on the bike. It just depends what where your head is.
True that. We used to have a teammate, Matt and I, whose cure for cramp when he was racing was to hit his quad as hard as he could. Yeah, and to be fair to him, it worked.
And
so,
was the cramp in the quad, or was that to distract him from where the cramp was?
It was to distract him from where the cramp was.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Bonkers.
That makes perfect sense.
We've got a really cool question here from Harry Perkins, which I liked. Firstly, because he said that he was 25% of your Wellington, New Zealand welcome party.
Yeah,
so I don't really remember that. But he's actually asked...
so where did he ride into?
Wellington, New Zealand.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So he said, what's the total list of all the ailments? Moving on from saddle soreness, obviously fractured radial head.
Yeah.
The pressure sores on your feet sounded brutal.
I would say the feet were the most uncomfortable. I mean, your feet are so sensitive, and when things start to go wrong, I had an issue with some of the insoles that were made, and there's just no break, is there? I mean, there's no way you can relieve that constant pedal stroke, and I ended up with open sores at times. So the foot underneath the cleat was actually sort of bleeding, and at other times, sort of thick calluses, which are, will eventually, it's not very pleasant. That's very, very, very painful, and there's no way to, shift your weight or change your pedaling or do anything to relieve that. It's just like you're riding on hot coals.
Oh man.
That's when your robustness psychologically comes into play, though, isn't it? Is your ability to deal with it, which you alluded to before. You're doing this thing, but you are able to cope with pretty much whatever is thrown at you. So that sound, I mean, what you just detailed, there'll be enough for one of us to have 2 weeks off the bike, feet up time.
At least 2 weeks.
You have no choice, It's
interesting because earlier in the year, in April, we did a training ride, which was 3,000. I'm looking at Mike, my logistics manager, who's just off camera here. What was that? 3,500
live
miles.
studio audience, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Griffiths, so who did all the logistics. 3,500 miles around the coastline of Britain, and
as a training ride, I'd love to do that. Full stop.
It's pretty hilly, and so I finished after 14 and a half days. With an injury, with a hamstring injury, and having not hit the target 240 miles a day. But the mantra on that ride is always to stop before we pushed it into the red.
Okay.
And blah blah blah. Whereas on the World, the conversation was unless it was unsafe to ride, we would never stop.
So it's into another realm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's a classic. Laura Penhall, my performance manager. It was that conversation. As long as you're safe to ride, you'll ride. Unless I literally just threw the toys out the cot and said I'm not riding. Sure. But that never happened because that it's a professional ride. That you've made that decision before you start. I'm never going to not get on the bike unless it's unsafe to do so. Safety very much comes first. But you're not out there, on a, this is no longer me out there, like I was as a teenager exploring the world under, and whether I turned right or left was my own wish, with professional sponsors, the media, the interest, I've obliged myself to do.
There's a reasonable amount of pressure there, isn't there? Let's be honest.
And I did treat it as a job. It's not me sort of saying, "Do I want to ride my bike today?"
Sure.
I'd committed to doing this, and I wasn't ever going to stop the wheels turning. But obviously, as time went on, mentally, you do end up in some pretty weird places where you don't know how you can carry on. You've thought all your thoughts, you've played all your tricks. You're in a pretty desperate place, but because of the routine of it, you can keep going. And so you're a bit of a robot on the bike at that point.
Now, you touched a little bit earlier about training. We've had a lot of questions about that. Not specifically people wanting to necessarily emulate you exactly, but certainly to learn from it. So Martin Heeden on Twitter actually asked about injury prevention.
Yeah.
He had knee trouble and he did like an epic endurance ride.
Yeah.
So Is there an element to which it's just kind of genetic that you're obviously robust, or is there stuff that you can do? You know, Laura, your performance manager, she was obviously there to to deal with anything as it happened. But what's the tips?
I mean, you're right insofar as your biggest worry on ultra endurance riding is not being fast enough. It's being robust enough. It's not injuring. So unlike your typical roadie, I'll do more than just ride my bike. So in the build up for the last year, you know, I would go fell running once a week, because it's great for the small muscle balances around your knees and your ankles. You know, I'd get in the pool. I wouldn't lift weights because my issue is I'm 6'3", and you know, I don't. If I'd lived a different career from the age of 15, I could be a rugby player rather than a road cyclist. So I don't. You know, I don't.
Couldn't.
No, I don't.
Not a chance.
I don't. You know, I think being a bigger build, I always excuse myself and say that probably does give me a level of robustness, but you know, who knows. Certainly what I've done since I was a 12-year-old kid cycling across Scotland through to being 34 years old, you know, trying to get around the world in 80 days, has all been in that ultra endurance sort of world. So the sort of niggles you get, I mean, the chap who asked the question about, you know, having a knee or an ankle injury, that repetitive strain injury tends to happen the first week or two of an endurance trip. As you go into the weeks and months, you tend to work through that sort of thing. You know, the tendons and the muscles are incredibly resilient, and it becomes more about the conditioning on the bike. So I mean, people who say things about, you know, that sort of chronic neck issue or knees or ankles, it tends to be, you know, the first week, 10 days, as you just translate being very fit in a traditional roadie sense to the ridiculous hours that you're pulling off on the bike. But after you're 2-3 weeks in, it's amazing how the body adapts. I mean, the body's got an amazing ability to adapt. And if you've not broken down and had to stop in the first couple of weeks because of the repetitive strain nature, your body tends to just sort of morph into whatever position you've got on the bike. It's amazing how much my neck suffered in the first 2-3 weeks, whereas, you know, by the time I was going across the US, it was never really an issue at all. But it becomes other things. You know, the psychology really kicks in, you know, through the second month into the third month. I've done much longer trips. You know, I've done 6-9 month trips on the bike, and it's really interesting what is an issue towards the start as you sort of get conditioned to what you're doing, and then what's a challenge further down the road.
Yeah, that whole mental versus physical thing, it does feel like that's the crux of, you know, an epic like this, doesn't it? It's you know, as long as your body holds up, really the limiting factor is your head.
Absolutely. And I think what's fascinating about ultra endurance cycling is 10 years ago you had touring over here, you had racing over there, and the world's never met or, you know, particularly talked to each other. Whereas now the people smashing records in ultra endurance are taking far more from racing than from touring. And even if you look at the bike packing world, you know, the distances that people are doing are phenomenal. And what I did 10 years ago with the round the world record, you know, which was 100 miles a day for half a year, would now be considered quite pedestrian. And so, you know, bikes haven't changed that much. You might argue differently. I don't think physiologically we're that much more able. What's changed is what we believe we can do. And when it comes to the training, I think people are still quite wedded to the old school way of let's just do mega miles because we'll be riding mega miles. If you look at my training over the last year, a lot of it was, you know, pyramid training, intensity training, you know, on the indoor trainer. It's not what you'd expect an ultra endurance rider to be doing, not least because I've got kids at home and, you know, I just don't have the time to ride for 8-10 hours a day in training. But actually, you know, pushing through the range in your training makes you a far more all-round robust athlete than just going out there and sitting at zone 2 all the time.
I think that's one of the things we said. People ask about if they're doing their first 100-mile ride and they've got limited time, or they're attempting a particularly long sportive, for example. You know, on limited time, if you ride in the higher zone, that will prepare you quite well for riding for a longer period of time in quite relatively, you know, pedestrian kind of zones with the greatest respect.
Well, it's also,
there is, you know, that you can actually, there are certain shortcuts to certain things.
I'd agree with that, but it's also psychologically good, and it's that military idea of, you know, train incredibly hard, so when you get out there, it's actually easier. It's up to a point. You're not, but you just need to do it for longer.
Sure.
You know.
What is your FTP actually? So this is something that I'm intrigued, but also Jay Carr sent this question in on Twitter. What's your, for those of you that don't know what FTP is, your functional threshold power. So it's a really good measure of effectively how fit and how fast someone can be on a bike. So how much power they can put out for an hour. So where does yours compare? Let's say, next to Chris Froome, for example.
That would be hopeless, wouldn't it? I mean, I've no idea since I got back. I would suggest my FTP's dropped considerably. I mean, I just won't have that top end I had 6 months ago. I'm trying to remember what my FTP was early in the year. I mean, it was high 300s, but I can't remember the specific number.
Bloody
I was going to say,
respectable.
it might not be quite up to the same power to weight ratio as Froome, but nevertheless, that's epic.
Those boys will be 4 something, won't they?
Yeah, probably 10 kilos less, I guess, but nevertheless.
Yeah, you're being very kind.
Could Chris Froome ride around the world in 78 days? I want to know whether he could. Looking at him, and this comes down to that robustness thing again. I wonder whether a Tour de France rider is the best person to ride around. I don't think so.
I think we talked about that. It's the biggest thing. I think, as well as your clear fitness, robustness, is how remarkably mentally strong you must be, because just the sheer, and I say this serious now, the sheer thought of what you were going to attempt when I heard it just blew my mind, and it almost kind of made me feel a bit kind of like I wanted to go and lie down, and it wasn't even me that was doing it. So I must.
What kind of inspirational thing you were going for then? I had around. I just want to go for a sleep. Yeah. Honestly,
the amount of times that I love that reaction, but it's obviously not what you wish for. Anytime somebody joined me on the road, they would sort of say who they were. They were excited to join me, and loads, hundreds of people did join me for short sections. And then their view on my trip was always their longest ride, where they wanted to take a bike, the things they planned to do. It was always through their own life experience and their life on 2 wheels, how they perceived what I was trying to do, looking for that point of reference. And it's interesting. Some people are like, oh, you make me feel terrible. And some people say, well, you make me want to do more. It's like when I'm asked to go in to do corporate talks, and then I find out 3 months later that I've actually inspired a couple of people to leave their jobs. And I'm like, well, that's not what you employed me to do.
You haven't de-inspired me. It was just so remarkable. It just sort of blew my mind a bit. But it's definitely inspirational stuff, and I like your idea of the around Britain, around the coast.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
It's a good ride.
Well, thinking about trying to inspire people a bit more, we've got a great question here from Scott Cooper, again on Twitter. Apart from the last day, is there any one day that stood out as a really great day?
Yeah.
Probably the first day, I guess.
I mean, absolutely. We had a great chat for the first 6 hours, and then I remember you were quite quiet for the next 10.
I didn't say much, did I?
He did mention that to us, yeah.
For 78 days, I rode through every sunrise and every sunset. It's pretty special when you get to see the complete day. And yeah, I mean, it's catching up with some of my team and reflecting on what their favourite parts were. I think we all agree that Mongolia was pretty epic.
Yeah.
Maybe because it came straight after Russia, which we found pretty tough going. But I mean, Mongolia was immediately much better roads and just epic landscapes. You're going through the Mongolian steppe and then the Gobi Desert. And it's just vast. It's fenceless, almost treeless horizons. And it's huge. You've got herds of wild horses, and then further south into the Gobi you've got the camels and the odd yurt out in the. I mean, it's just beautiful.
That sounds pretty cool. To be fair, sunrise over the Gobi Desert.
Yeah, it was pretty special. They've forgotten to tar the final mile or two to the Chinese border, so I was like pushing my bike through the sand. But apart from that, the roads were fantastic. South Island, New Zealand. The coldest riding, really quite bitter. I mean, we landed in Invercargill. As always, it was an absolute race to get out. I mean, from touchdown in Perth, Australia, actually, and both, and then Invercargill, start of each leg, to being on the bike was less than 45 minutes. You can see how this was an absolute, the clock never stops.
Amazing.
But then I rode out that evening. I think we landed at 6 p.m. Rode a set till say 10 p.m. and then my mechanic Rye was working on the bike that night, and all the tools were freezing, and the bike was, it was really, and we set out at 4 a.m. the next morning. I had a full Primaloft jacket on with ice and full mitts with hand warmers in, and it was, as the sun came up, we were climbing up through Queenstown and Wanakon, through the ski resorts, snow-peaked mountains around you. It was pretty gritty, but it was absolutely stunning. And then we came over the Hast Pass as night fell, and this cracking hairline descent, switchback descent down to the west coast. That was a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's amazing how many times you'll be riding a bike when you have to ride it for whatever reason, even if you don't fancy it. And those are the days or the rides where actually some of the best experiences happen, isn't it? Whether you're stuck somewhere and it turns into an epic, those are the ones you remember, or the weather's bad or whatever.
Riding through dawn is always my favourite experience, but getting on your bike before dawn is always pretty miserable.
Yeah.
Are there any bits you talk about, especially late in late into the journey, when your body's kind of on autopilot, your feeding is a process, and you're just locked and loaded on your bike, especially in some of the straight roads like in Australia and the US, for example. Are there any bits that you can't remember? Because you seem to have quite a vivid recollection of what kind of, what inspired you and the kind of fun. Are there bits where you're like, oh my God, I don't know, I can't remember the last 2 hours? Are there bits where you're so zoned out and tuned in that you have no recollection?
That happened more and more through the second part of leg 3. Okay. So leg 3 was Anchorage to Halifax, and my team, Mike, Laura, the other people who were really close to me and supporting my performance through leg 3 were a bit worried about me. I stopped communicating particularly well. I would get off the bike and just be a bit zoned out. It's interesting because earlier on in the trip, I'm talking about the first month, 6 weeks, I had huge emotional ranges, as you would, because I'd never pushed myself this hard. I'd laugh, I'd cry, you'd have the normal sort of spectrum of being pushed to your limit. But then into the second month and then, as we came towards the end, it was more worrying than that. Like it's actually good when you laugh and you cry, but when you stop having emotions, when you sort of drop into like neutral, and I struggled to feel anything. It was just pretty desperate for a couple of weeks. And as I say, I stopped communicating clearly with the team. I'd get off the bike, they'd ask me a question, I just wouldn't be there.
Maybe actually it was a point that rather than being a bad thing, you actually just reached Zen. You'd ridden so far, you were kind of like just meditating and just completely, at one with the road and the bike and just.
But if that's Zen, I don't want to be there again.
I wouldn't want to be in that Zen side.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, maybe that's not Zen. Okay, moving back to your questions here. Really good one from Matthew Lewis on Facebook. What did you most crave whilst riding? And he says brackets other than a rest.
I mean, people often ask, what food were you looking forward to most? But I mean, I was getting down 9,000 calories a day. So to be honest with you, I was looking forward to not eating, or eating whilst I wasn't being pummeled by some painful sports massage or acupuncture needles at the same time. What was I looking forward to most? My kids, the family, normality. Taking the dog for a walk. It's not rock and roll, but I was in this incredible team bubble. Working in such a unique mindset. I'm so used to solo travel when I'm out there sort of doing things myself, but I was just the guy on the bike, and I had this amazing camaraderie and team around me, and it's actually strange adjusting back from that. But what I was looking forward to most was 8 hours kip. Seeing my kids and getting off the bike for a while. Yeah.
Well, you're talking about the support team there. Chris Hitchings has asked, which did you prefer, your supported world record or your solo? So if you don't know, Mark rode around the world 10 years ago, self-supported, and broke the record then. Pretty much reignited the whole passion around, circumnavigating the globe on a bike. And how many days was it? 107?
194.
194. So which did you prefer then? Solo or supported?
Interestingly, when I broke it then, I broke the record by about 80 days. So to get around the world in 80 days this time is...
Crikey. Puts it into context, doesn't it?
Which is... Because it's ultimately the same record, it's... people obviously see them as the same thing. No part of it was the same for me, except for some familiar roads. It's such a different mindset, and physically it was such a different journey. The round the world the first time will always have a very, very special place in my memory because, I left uni, I'd never travelled outside of Europe and North America, and it was the first time I went out there and explored the world on my own, on two wheels, and it's wonderful. You're wide-eyed, naive, sleeping under the road in Iran, armed escorts around the Helmand province,
Wow.
It's just...
You should have thought more about your route, Mark. I'm not
it's
gonna
just
It's not quite as bad
it's
as
just pretty
running out of
interesting.
Bristol in the rush hour, is it?
No. I think that first trip will always have a very special place because of my mindset and experience at that time.
Yeah.
As time goes on and you travel more and whatnot, you know too much, and you always go out there for that fix and that adventure. It's why my endurance cycling always still takes me around the world. I would never, all due respect, I would never go for the year record because I to leave your front door just to ride miles bears no interest for me. So it's the same reason that I ride. I still ride because I love crossing continents and the world and the place the bike takes you. But in terms of mindset, it can be more different. People have genuinely asked me in the last couple of weeks since I finished, which is more difficult 10 years ago and now? And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, this makes that look like kindergarten. I mean, at the time I thought I was pushing it, but 16 hours a day for 2.5 months. I mean, that was my Everest.
Yeah.
And I can't compare the two.
How much does being self-supported slow you down? So buying your own food.
Oh, massively.
So you would, let's say you'd lose 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Kind of finding shelter or is it compounding it over time? So the fact you don't sleep as well, the fact that you don't have performance manager.
There's two things. A, it's the fact that you need to, where's my next meal? Where am I going to sleep tonight? All the unknowns. I mean, the last record I broke before this one was the length of Africa, Cairo to Cape Town. And I was limited by daylight hours. It was unsafe to ride into the dark. Whereas obviously if I'd had, these guys with me, the sport vehicle, I would have extended the day to, 12 to 16 hours. So it's massive, the difference. But it's also, as you say, the marginal gains around, it's having a team around you cracking the whip.
Yeah.
Every break is exactly what it should be. I rode till 4 till 8 in the morning. I got off the bike, threw some porridge in, had 8 to 10 minutes kip, got back on the bike. So the morning break was 20 to
8
20.
to 10 minutes kip. It couldn't have gone for 10 to 12 minutes, 8 to 10.
Those are some of my favourite sleeps, actually.
Cool, isn't
8
it?
to 10 minute bracket.
Talking to Mike Christie, sorry to cut across, can you actually sleep for 10 minutes and actually wake up and think, okay, I'm good to go?
Yeah, the mind trick that I played myself was that, the graveyard shift in the morning, just get it out of the way, get through dawn, and then look forward to my kip. And that, that 8 to 10 minutes would set me up for the rest of the day.
It's quite motivating in its own sort of way as well, yeah.
Because then I reset, got on the bike, and I was like, I've only got a 12-hour day to ride.
Right.
Which is much easier than thinking at 4 o'clock I've got a 16-hour day to ride.
Sure.
I realise it sounds stupid now, but
Those are the mind tricks that get you through, whether it's riding up a hill or it's like doing a 100-mile ride or riding around the world. We're pretty simple things, aren't we? Really, human beings, and you can trick yourself into doing things. And if it's looking forward to an 8-minute sleep,
I think the most important thing, with the distinction with the fully supported is the discipline that the team brings to it. They are taking care of the logistics. The move. I mean, I had 2 vehicles with me the whole time: a follow vehicle and a media vehicle, and we worked out that if I faffed for an extra 5 minutes each break, and how easy is it to faff for 5 minutes?
Well, you're talking to the champion right now. Matt can faff for hours, and no one knows what
for the
happens.
record actually. Some tips a bit later, but I can faff for the UK.
That would have added, if we'd done that every single break, it would have added 2 days to the record.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you'd have been looking at probably more like 95 days.
Possibly, I wouldn't have broken it with the amount of faffing.
No. So yeah, but that is a bonkers stat, though, isn't it? 5 minutes of faff time at each break, and you lose 2 days. Yeah, that is remarkable. Right, I'm conscious we probably need to wrap this up, otherwise it's going to turn into another endurance event for you.
We need to just show this before we do wrap things up.
Oh wow! Look at that
certificate.
There we go. We went in to meet the team at Guinness World Record, and it was really cool actually with this record because the other records I've gone for, they take 6 to 8 weeks to verify for obvious reasons. But again, my team did an amazing job of getting in all the stats as we went. So on the finishing line, they could turn around and say, "There you go." So
that is cool, isn't it?
That is very, very cool indeed.
I reckon we've got time for one last question from Ben Moore. Basically, he said, "Have you felt any deflation based on how can I better this one, or are you content, or is there something else to come? What's next?
That's a nice upbeat question to finish on.
Well, what's next then?
Are you depressed?
Sorry, I'm going to rephrase Ben Moore's question. Mark, what comes next?
Somebody asked me that in the finishing line. I was like, what a great point in time! What a great time to announce my next expedition. No, let's be honest here. Anyone who's taken on any big ride, other people see it differently than you see it. And I've finished, and I reflect what my whole team have felt as well. There's a real void. There's a real sense of, wow, you're just left behind this sort of epic sort of mindset, physical, everything we've done. And everyone else is pulling back flips and incredibly excited for you. And you, certainly immediately when you're tired, don't feel the same. So it's a very strange feeling, absolutely. And I mean, this is only a couple of weeks later. So, that's the honest truth. I mean, I have found it really important to get time with the family and a bit of time out, because it's been so crazy with the media, and it never quite marries up to how you imagine it to be. Even the finish, which you rode with me into Paris, you know, everyone else is just so excited and there's a buzz, and I was at the heart of it, you know, a bit slightly rabbit in the headlights. You know, it's like, this is the point I've dreamt of probably 100,000 times. I'm now here, enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it. And the more you tell yourself to be in the moment and enjoy it, the more you're sort of almost watching yourself going,
I can imagine
am I here? Is this real? Is this finally going to finish?
The fact that the two dudes on penny farthings probably only added to the surrealness of the occasion.
So they were two buddies of mine. I mean, they, you know, 50-inch wheel, top hat, pith helmet, you know, the works. And actually, Neil has asked me, this might be the next thing, he's asked me to come back and have a crack at the penny farthing hour record, which was set in 1870 something.
No way. That's super cool.
So I'll let you know if that happens.
Yeah. I tell you what, being 6'3", presume you can have a bigger front wheel. And then you just go further.
I mean, your view in the world up there is incredible.
Riding around a velodrome would be terrifying. Though, one of those things, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, the next thing is going to be the penny farthing world hour record.
Yeah, well, yeah. Watch this space.
Yes, only semi-official at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Right, well, Mark, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. And thank you as well for involving us in your, you know, around the world record-breaking things. It was an absolute privilege to join you a couple of times.
It's been fun, and I have to say, and I mentioned this when we rode, hundreds and hundreds of people came out on road with me, especially back in the English-speaking world, Australia, New Zealand, North America, and most of them knew about the ride through GCN. So, I mean, you've got a great community out there.
Yeah, way to go, GCN viewers. That's awesome. Right, the last thing I suppose we've got to say is make sure you subscribe to GCN. And if you want a bit more info about Mark's Around the World Record Breaking Attempt, we've got two videos. The first one where I tried desperately to ride a day with you, and that was just down there. Or the last day where I only did 90 miles, and that felt much better. That was just down there.
And don't forget to like and share this video.
Absolutely.